right, joining us now alongside Bryson Turner, and of course, I'm Eric Lopez here. Of course, big weekend at the USTA Center at Lake Nona this week. Top 20, the very best in college tennis. UCF men's tennis off to a fantastic start this season once again. Gets to host not one, but two top 10 teams this weekend. In Big 12 play, they'll take on number 2 ranked TCU on Friday nights. And then on Sunday against number 10 Arizona. It is going to be incredible. And joining us now to discuss that is the head coach of the UCF Knights, Lloyd Bruce-Burgess, joining us here. How you doing?
Doing good. Thank you for having me on.
Well, nothing like hosting two top 10 teams on one weekend, right? What is this like? I mean, me and Bryson have been talking about this weekend and circling this of such a historical aspects of big matchups, three marquee tennis here. It's great for the sport, but just kind of what's it like that you're finally here in this matchups?
Yeah, I mean it's been a pretty exciting season already, So some history that been made with the best start and qualifying for the national indoors for the first time, which we actually beat Arizona to do that. And then beating Ohio State at the national indoors, who are the defending champions. So there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on. Obviously, we're coming off a weekend that was pretty disappointing, losing to South Florida. So there's been a lot of chaos and a lot of fun as well. So haven't thought too much about it, but it was a big focus on the non-conference, and we had a great non-conference despite Sunday not being how we wanted to end it. It was as good as you could ask for, to be honest. And if I look at it from the outside and say, look, would you sign up for this non-conference season you had, and make an Elite Eight of a national tournament and beat Ohio State? Would you do that if you have to lose to Miami and South Florida? Yeah, for sure, I would have done that. No questions asked. So it's been really exciting, and now it's time to focus on conference and hosting TCU and Arizona. I mean, we lost to TCU last year at their place 4-3, and it came down to final set decider. So we know we expect a tough match, and they've obviously been really good already, making the final of national indoors, and we beat Arizona 4-3 at their place. So they're coming for revenge to try and beat us here. So it's exciting. We look forward to matches like this. I think our team get up for these kind of matches. We always make it tough on these big teams that are top 10, I guess. And I don't think we're a team that anyone wants to come and play.
So you talked about South Florida on Sunday. That was a rematch of a match you had at their place earlier in the month of February, earlier in the season. You have another rematch on Sunday. You beat Arizona at their place. Considering you're going into a second regular season matchup with a team for the second weekend in a row, how do you kind of approach that again and approach that again now that you're in a similar situation?
Yeah, I mean, we have to remind the guys honestly about how we got to the point of beating Arizona in the first place. It's also good to remember that we did just lose the rematch with South Florida, right? So I think it's two different teams. I think all respect to South Florida, I think we felt that we were the better team going into the South Florida match both times, and with Arizona going into that, we knew we were the underdogs. So I think it's a little bit of a different feel. And I think the guys definitely know that it was a huge win. At the time, it was the biggest win in program history until we beat Ohio State a couple of weeks later. So, I think the guys know how tough it's going to be. They have a number one player that just beat three top 100 players in the world and won around at Indian Wells. So it's and then they have a number two guy who's 5 in the country. So there's no secret how good they are. So we're fully preparing for battle with them with that team, and same for TCU. So the message remains the same as what we've been doing the whole time. But the question is, can we keep doing it? It's a lot about repetition and things that are boring and hard to do over and over, and sleeping the right way, eating the right way, and preparing our bodies the right way. We know that we have to do that to have a chance to beat these two teams, and I think ultimately that's what it comes down to. What are we willing to do to give ourselves the best chance to come out on top?
For those that are going to come out and watch your team play this weekend, maybe for the first time, how would you describe your team for those that are going to, but right now, maybe following your program right now, starting this weekend?
Yeah, I mean the feel usually is pretty high energy and loud and feisty. We kind of bring it to every team that we play. I think we did a really good job of that against Arizona and Ohio State in particular, two teams that have a lot of respect in college tennis, and that's kind of my way of operating is that the respect between coaches and teams is that you bring it as hard as you can at each other, and that's what respect is. And I think we go out and do that each time, and so we put on a fight each time they get out there, and you'll see that from our guys that they don't go away without leaving it all out on the court. And it's exciting to watch them play. I'm really glad that they embody that because it's really what I asked for, and it's why I do this job. So my team will always give everything, and we might not win every match, but we'll give everything to do so.
A lot of returners from last year's team that, of course, made that great run to the round of 32. Did you sense that confidence that comes with that experience they gained last year from this year's group? Is that you've noticed the differences there?
It's an interesting question. I think I think you're probably right. I think it did definitely breed some confidence that although there was a lot of doubt around our capabilities and obviously my first year and most of their second year being here was we were 60 or so in the country and people kind of doubted that we could do it or have a good season. And obviously we went on to have one of our best in history and make the round of 32 for the second time. So it was, I think that bred a lot of confidence. I think the guys trusting us as coaches, Kareem and I, and trusting themselves that although people thought, you guys aren't that good, that we actually could show up and win a lot of matches and beat people. And I think they carried that into this season as well. I think being five guys that returned, I think they kind of talked to the other guys on the team and they kind of embodied that. And when we stepped out there with Arizona and Ohio State, which were obviously the two bigger wins we had so far, I think they knew that it was possible to go out and win, and a lot of that was taken from last year. I think you're right.
Coach, coming into this weekend, you have now 33 wins on your young career as UCF head coach. I remember when we talked for the first time after you were hired, when we previewed last season about how you dreamt of doing this, head coaching at the college level. Considering now that you're already in the top five in program history and wins this early on, just what does that mean to you to not only just be living your dream, but actually succeeding at it at least this early on?
Yeah, I the amount of wins I didn't know that, but that's cool. I as I tell the team, I don't like to get too far ahead of ourselves. We treat every team and every accolade with as much humility as we can, and not just because we want to be nice and humble people, but because I believe that's how you continue to be successful. You don't rest on your laurels. You don't think that oh, now, I've kind of proved myself, which I have. I've proved that it was a good idea to hire me, which was obviously a lot of question marks for some people in the college tennis world. But that's not where we want to stop, right? So, sure, like I can say that we've done some great things here, and of course I'm part of that, being the head coach. But I don't think I don't want to say, oh wow, this is so great, and now relax. There's a lot of things I want to achieve here, and a lot of things the guys on the team and Kareem and the whole administration deserve to achieve with the resources that we have here. So I think it's good to look at it and say, why have we been successful, and try to use those things moving forwards to continue to have success, but not to kind of stop too long and look at it. I like, end of the season, I'll take a couple weeks, I'll enjoy it, and then we move on to how we can continue to build on that success moving forwards. But as you said, of course, it is a dream. It's why I stayed in the US and didn't go home to England, was to do this job. And I took a lot of risks to put myself in this position, and it is a dream to be doing this. And of course, having success while doing it is amazing, and that's what you want to do.
What's it been like working with Brian as him being the director of tennis and you being the head coach of the men's side versus you being his assistant when you were obviously on his staff on the women's side?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's really nice to have such a good relationship with Brian, and having worked for him as his assistant, we had a really good relationship, and we continue to have that, and we continue to bounce ideas off each other all the time. So it's really nice, and he's really helped me with a lot of situations that I get to ask him about, and he continues to bounce ideas off of us as well. We're a pretty united team on the women's and men's side, and I think we all use each other to push the programs forward in the right direction. So I think we're in a great working environment to build the programs. And last season they were struck with a lot of injuries, but like a really really good team, and it was kind of like a for them like quote unquote bad season. But they knew they had a good team, and it's awesome to see them this year. With all the talent they have, putting it all together. I don't want to jinx anything, but yeah, they're off to a good start. Best starting program history for them, and they're 17 in the country today, so they're looking really good, and it's awesome to see that. And we're always cheering them on from the sidelines. We had a weekend off last weekend, not yesterday or 2 days ago, but the weekend before, and I spent my Sunday watching them beat Oklahoma State on ESPN Plus, and it was so cool to see, so I'm really happy for that.
It was. And I'm curious, when you decided to join Brian on his staff, you saw what Brian and, of course, John Roddick built here at UCF. I mean, it's been a remarkable story what the two of them have done to help this program, considering where it was prior to their arrival.
Yeah.
Was that what attracted you to come and coach under Brian? And then as you were around those two, and then you saw the opportunity, hey, the men's job's open. I want to stay here. I want to be a part of this. Did you kind of sense that as you came here?
Well, it was interesting. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for COVID, honestly, because I was the assistant at Iowa on the men's side, and I'd only been there a couple of years, and I wasn't looking to leave, and they cut men's tennis during COVID, and I was obviously looking for a new job, and Brian's assistant had left. And it was a job I was interested in, and being in Orlando, and I knew the growth of UCF. I knew how fast it had grown. Being a tennis person, you're obviously aware of UCF because of the USTA especially, and this flip from being on campus to being at USTA, and then seeing what John had done with the men's program and what Brian had done with the women's program. Pretty rapid rise to the top of college tennis. So knew it was a great place to be. Knew it was a place that had big dreams for its athletics. And I knew Brian and John did a great job. So being around them would be a great place to learn and develop. And then I of course, if you're an assistant coach, I assume usually most people want to be a head coach at some point. That wasn't really like I saw that as a pathway here. That would be great, but usually you're not looking like, well, hopefully I'll be the next men's head coach, being the women's assistant for a couple of years. That wasn't really on my mind at that point. But of course, when the opportunity presented itself, that's what I wanted to do.
I know the USTA National Campus is a bit of a trek for people that maybe are in the UCF community where the main campus is, but considering how much of an epicenter it is in the tennis community, not just in college, but professional, just what does that do to when you add a college environment into that picture?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because at times maybe I would say different than on-campus college facilities where they're usually, if people are there watching, they're usually really rooting hard for their team. With us, we get a bit of a mixed bag where it might just be people who are, they might have some matches going on at the USTA that day, or their kids have been doing a kids clinic, or the kids are doing that themselves and coming over and watching. So it probably adds a little more diversity to who's watching. People just coming out of interest and love for tennis versus necessarily a love for the school. So definitely get some extra viewers there as far as like not just UCF fans, and maybe that gets people interested in UCF athletics as a whole.
Which player on this roster has made the biggest jump, either from last year's team or just coming in? Like, which players have stood out to you like, ooh, this player might be maybe ahead of schedule where I thought they would be?
Yeah, it's hard to say that, but I don't like to do that too often. But clearly, Mehdi Benchikhoun has made a big jump. He was playing six majority of last year. He was a rock at six, though. He didn't lose many, but he's definitely developed. a really long way. Paul Collin, same thing for him. He was, as a freshman, he was 0-5 in singles and not playing, and one of the lower UTRs on the team. And in his sophomore year, was like 12-2 and the highest UTR on our team by the end of it. And so, those two have definitely made some significant jumps. Santi, he's been an absolute rock for us. He really doesn't lose. Bryson may know his stats in dual match singles play, but I off the top of my head, I want to say he's lost 3 singles matches and he's probably won like 26, 27 in the last 2 years. So, those 3 guys, you have to say, have made some pretty huge jumps, but it's tough to leave any of those guys out. I mean, Liam Brangier is definitely in that group as well. So I think those 4 guys probably have stood out as the guys who have jumped the most. And this year in particular, probably say Mary, just due to the lineup position changes.
What's it like playing when you're in this conference now? I was used to be in the American teams. You would play the American Conference, now Big 12. What has that been like for the program to be in the Big 12 and playing the teams like the TCUs and the Arizonas?
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously my own experience in on the men's side with the head coaching job has been in the Big 12. But if you look at the scheduling previously done by John, they were playing high level teams the whole time anyway. It was just at different times. John would play those teams earlier on in the year in the non-conference, and then play American conference teams usually on the back end. Whereas as this year, our 2 years in the Big 12, it's more of a flip. We play those teams a bit earlier on, and then we have the Big 12 competition towards the end. But honestly, the schedule was tough when John was here. He scheduled tough, and we obviously have the same thing because we have mandatory play in the Big 12 with some of the best teams in the country. So I don't think it's that different for the program. But it's exciting to be in the Big 12 and play and know that you're going to play these teams every year. And of course, for men's tennis, the Big 12 is a crazy good level. So it makes it very tough.
Incredible indeed. What got you into tennis?
My dad played socially, and he told me I had to go to a tennis lesson one day when I was 6 years old, and I went, and I luckily I had a good experience, and then I loved it, and it kind of evolved from there.
Did you have a favorite player you kind of like grew as you were playing?
Yeah, Roger would be my favorite Federer.
I knew. I knew.
I always wanted to play pretty like him, but I never could. It was always,
nobody does. Nobody ever could.
Yeah, it was a bit too much brute force my end, so it was not as elegant, unfortunately.
Did you ever watch him play in person? Did you go to any majors?
Oh yeah, yes.
What was it like?
Yeah, it's one of the craziest things is watching him practice actually up close. And I was working at Wimbledon actually as a college student. IBM hired college students that have experience in tennis to do the stats. So we were there before the tournament started with probably 200 or so people maximum walking around the grounds, and the players were practicing. So we got to sit there with me and like 2 or 3 other people watching him practice, and that was a pretty crazy experience just to see how easy he made tennis look. And of course it's not, and he will be the first to say that it's a lot of hard work that goes into making it look that easy. But it was crazy to be that close and just see how cleanly he hits the ball and how easily he times the ball.
No doubt about that. How are you different today as a coach versus a year ago as you were in your first year? How are you different?
Not 100% sure. I think I came in with the idea that I never wanted to think that I knew all the time what the right idea was or the right path to take. That I always wanted to ask perspective from others, from the captains on the team, from coaches around me, and really kind of make sure, like, if the decision's being made, that we've analyzed every area possible, and we leave no stone unturned. And I think that's remained. Obviously, I think part of kind of sticking with that is because we did have a pretty good first year, and so I've kind of stuck with the methods that bred success on the first year so far. So at the moment, I'd say it's fairly similar, just because things have been going well, and we don't want to change too much of a winning formula for now. So at the moment, I'd say it remains fairly similar, but I'm sure things evolve as time goes by.
What has it been like from the recruiting standpoint? Because I know you inherited a lot of players from from John Ruddock when he left, but you recruited the likes of Nicolas Oliveira, Simeon Terzaev, and all that. And what has it been like working with them this season and start to kind of build up your own players that you brought in?
Yeah, it's the those five guys that came back from last year. We had such a great bond with them and such a great first season. They definitely feel like our players. I would say it's been so amazing with them, and to like I tell the new guys who are coming in, I told them it's going to be really tough for you to get yourselves in ahead of these guys based on what they did last year. We just have a lot of faith in them. They performed when no one believed in them, and when people thought they were no good, and they showed themselves to be able to perform at the highest level of college tennis. And if you're going to work your way in ahead of these guys, it's going to be a real big challenge. And that went the same for not just the new guys that were coming in, but for Emilio and Luca, who were returning and part of that group as well. They know how they didn't get as many chances to play as those other five, but they know how hard it is to get yourselves in ahead of guys who had such an incredible season like those five did. So the main thing for those new guys coming in has been just stay patient, stay working hard, and look, these just remaining hungry and working hard, because to get yourselves in this lineup, it's definitely going to be hard, but the chances will be there. And also just making sure they try and learn from those other guys as well, because those guys have had the experience and can be such a great resource for the new players coming in.
Well, a couple of UCF teams that already done some quite the bounce backs from losses. Lost their last conference game, came back and won a series against top four, five ranked Arizona team. Baseball got run ruled by USF, won by double digits the next five games. You're coming off of a loss to South Florida. I know it's only been a couple of days since then, but what have you seen from the reaction to the players, like in practice, and how they've kind of been responding to this situation as you go into conference play against a very high ranked team yourselves?
Yeah, well, we haven't practiced. We took 2 days. The guys took yesterday. Everyone took yesterday off, and then we had practice today with three of the guys that didn't play much over the weekend. And the rest of the guys I asked to take the day off. This part of the season it's pretty rough, and we've played a lot of matches already. So it's important to really get them feeling good physically. Spent some time going over match footage with the guys that I was doing just before you called today with some of the guys who played. We had a team meeting today, discussed some things. Assured them that as you said, teams in UCF have bounced back from losses to go on and have great success, and we've already done it this season, which is what I wanted to remind them about. Right, we went and lost to Miami. We didn't play well against FAU, and we came through. And then we do maybe one of the hardest things to do in college tennis, which is be an outdoor team, show up to the national indoors, and beat Ohio State indoors as defending national champions. And I told the guys, look, if you can lose to Miami, and then with 2 days practice indoors, show up and knock off Ohio State after losing a doubles point, that tells us that you guys can do anything. You guys can beat anyone. There isn't going to be a tougher challenge in college tennis than beating Ohio State indoors as an outdoor team after losing the doubles point. There'll be nothing harder to do. So if we can do that, we can lose to South Florida and show up and beat TCU and Arizona on Friday and Sunday without doubt. So it's a message to stay positive and not lose sight of the fact that things have gone well. But it's as I say to them, and as they know, like, we're humble enough to know that we can lose these matches. And South Florida came out and played well, and they were the better team, and it was came down to a couple points here and there, but we knew going in they were perfectly capable of beating us, and we knew that from the match that we played against them earlier in the year, where we won 4-3. So it's just staying positive and keeping the perspective.
Well, we'll let you go on this as you get ready. What can fans expect from watching tennis in that beautiful facility that you call home there? That, by the way, pretty soon, in a few years, will be called the home for the national championships. Will be decided on that field there. What can fans expect when they go out there to the USTA Center in Lake Nona?
Yeah, I think the number one thing for people is, if you are a tennis fan already, you're gonna love it. I've never had someone who watches tennis on TV or professionally show up to watch a college tennis match and think it wasn't fun. They have a great time, and they usually think it's much more fun than pro tennis, which it is. It's a much more enjoyable environment to be in. It's loud, it's engaging, it's exciting. Like the players are yelling, they're engaging with the fans. It's amazing. And if you're not a tennis fan, if you're not someone who's watched tennis before, I think usually the perspective is that it's compared to what tennis looks like on TV. And it couldn't be further away from that. You've got guys running around, screaming all over the place, yelling to each other, yelling to the fans. It's an exciting, electric atmosphere. And when the moments get tight and there's tension out there, there's not a sport more exciting than that. So I definitely advise people to come down and watch, and they will no doubt have a good time.
I think a lot of people are looking forward to it this weekend. Make sure everybody go out there. For more information, go out to check out UCFnights.com, and of course, follow UCF Tennis on all of their social platforms. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's a busy time again, ready for an important weekend, but I appreciate you talking to me and Bryson, especially Bryson. He's there all the time for you, as you know very well. Yeah. He can keep track for you on the courts there. He'll be there this weekend. I'll be there later in the season, but good luck this weekend and the rest of the year, and thanks for talking to us.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, guys.